So, I want to talk to you guys about some of my favorite fantasy tropes today because I realize I haven't done that so far. And I want to give you guys a better idea of one, books I want to read, but two, these types of videos always help me when I'm trying to brainstorm, whether it's a new story or something I'm already working on. Something about somebody chatting in the background and just kind of throwing out ideas and concepts and whatever it's easier than just sitting down and trying to come up with it myself out of all the books that I've read in my entire life, or shows I've watched or whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to go over those things today in the hopes that either I can get some cool book recommendations from y'all or that I can help inspire you. So let's get into it. I'm pretty excited. Trope number one, the secret heir. I think that this is a better version in some ways of the chosen one trope. The chosen one trope usually pisses me off. I pretty much have only ever seen it in YA books, which is probably a huge part of the reason it pisses me off so much. I'm sorry, but I can't really get behind the idea of a whiny 16-year-old saving the world. I just can't. Um, there's nothing wrong with those books. If you like that kind of stuff, I absolutely support that. Read whatever makes you happy. But I'm not a huge fan. The reason I love the secret heir trope is because it's usually a lot more logical. It doesn't require that character to, even if the character is a teenager or whatever, it doesn't require that character to be super special or have some kind of innate abilities or destiny or anything silly like that. They're not necessarily even required to save the world, really. They can be. You can do whatever you want with a secret heir trope, really, but I think that it's just usually more logical and can be really fun because of the mystery involved in it. For me, it's like, what made them the secret heir? What happened? Historically, there have been plenty of people who have been whisked away for their own safety during times of political conflict and war and whatever. And so finding a way to incorporate that idea into a fantasy world, it's so fun. I love that stuff. You are going to notice a theme in all of my favorite tropes, or at least a lot of them, I will say. I am a huge fan of mystery, anything secret, ancient, whatever. Give me that stuff. All right, trope number two. This one I feel like is kind of similar to the secret heir, but they they don't have to always be done together. They can absolutely be done separately. But that would be secrets in the family line. I love those stories where there's like the really old families that have, hidden things that their own families have done in the past, or, different family members haven't figured these things out yet, but there's some kind of mystery that needs to be unraveled. Again, this can look like a lot of different things, but really old families with really messed up histories, oh, it's so good. It's so fun. Trope number three that I'm a huge fan of is the ancient evil waiting to resurface and be unleashed at some point in the story. Ferngully, right? If you ever saw the Ferngully movie when you were a kid, I love that one so much. I can't even think of the demon's name now, but the demon that gets trapped in that tree and is about to be unleashed because of people destroying the rainforest. Yeah, think stuff like that. Anything like that. Another good example would be like anything Lovecraftian, pretty much, right? These like ancient gods that are super evil, but only really to us. It's just because we're like basically bugs to them. Stuff like this, right? Like, I geek out so hard about those things. Trope number four. This one, again, it's sometimes related. Lovecraft for sure does this a lot of the times, but discovering ancient ruins. This doesn't have to be related to any kind of ancient alien idea or anything like that, but it could be a lost culture. It could be, old temple ruins like in the depths of a desert or a jungle or whatever that have been hidden away for so long because people haven't been able to get there. And finding those ruins, finding out about that culture, finding out what happened to them. Oh my gods, yes. I literally used to want to be an archaeologist for years when I was a child because of my love for this kind of stuff. Like, it's pretty intense. But all of that, it's so fun. I love learning about different cultures and things like that. And if they haven't existed in a long time, that adds to the mystery. Trope number 5 would be, I know some people are going to have feelings about this, but whatever. This is my favorites. I love finding magical, powerful artifacts in a story. Now, I don't necessarily care if it's an artifact that has to be found to complete a mission, or it's just something cool that gets found and you have to figure out what it is. It's going to depend on the type of story you're trying to tell, what your point is with all of that, for sure. But this one, I don't care what kind of story it is. If there is some ancient artifact, it's the same kind of thing with the ancient ruins for me. It's like, I want to know the story behind it. I want to know how it was found. I want to know what it was used for, or who left it wherever it was found, right? All the mysteries that go along with that, I want to know all about it. And I know some people have issues with this particular trope just because of, you know, it being done so much, especially in particular storylines where you have to find like a magical sword or whatever to like defeat the big baddie or become king or whatever. But again, I will always love that trope. Trope number 6. This is another one I feel like some people are going to have their own personal feelings on, and that's totally fine. But I love it, and I will always love it. And that is the pseudo-medieval European setting. I don't necessarily think that it always has to be done extremely medievally. Like, you don't have to base all of your, in fact, I'd prefer people not base all of their religions and everything on true medieval religion of the time. I'd rather not focus on all the negatives of medieval life all the time. That's not why I like the trope. I just personally love the setting. I love castles. I love the wardrobes. I love the idea of like not having technology everywhere. Like, technology for me, if I want to read something like that, I will go find a good sci-fi, but I don't personally like it so much in my fantasy worlds. I've seen some that are really interesting and can definitely pull me in, but if I am going to search out fantasy myself, most of the time the ones that I am drawn to are these like pseudo medieval fantasy ones. And again, I think the main reason a lot of people get tired of it is because it has been done a lot, but also because of people constantly rehashing old school medieval issues that like we don't necessarily deal with to the same degree these days, or maybe we do, but just in a different way, right? For me, a huge part of fantasy is taking from older times, because a lot of fantasy does come from our fairy tales. And if we go back beyond fairy tales, they date back from our mythologies in the world. And so to me, a huge part of fantasy is historical. It is based on history. It's just a much more fantastical version of history. Trope number 7 that I can always get behind would be any type of library full of secret wisdom and knowledge. For me, this just, think of the Library of Alexandria in our real world history that no longer exists. It burnt down, and like 99% of what was in there got destroyed. I think about this so frequently. I want to know, like, what did our ancestors, what did the ancients used to know? What wisdom was in that library that we lost because of Christianity? What did people used to know and or just believe in at the time? If you're a writer, you're probably also a reader, so who doesn't love a good giant library full of secret knowledge? Who doesn't want that in a story? Seriously. Trope number 8. Give me a good redemption arc. I will say this does depend heavily on a few things. For example, don't give me a character that's like Hitler level evil and expect me to be on board with that character receiving a redemption arc. I'm not, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I'm going to wish that character dead like the entire time if I even finish the book. So don't do that, but you can give me a really messed up, morally gray character, and if you do a well paced redemption arc for them, I will absolutely fall in love with that character. I love morally gray characters anyway. I feel like they just feel more realistic. I love following a nastier character and their journey. So that's really fun. Honestly, that's another trope. I'm going to squeeze that in here. Trope number 9, following the villain. Again, don't give me some Hitler level evil character to follow. And don't give me a villain that is just evil to be evil. Let them be logical. Let them be morally gray. Give them a reason to feel that they are right in what they're trying to accomplish. Okay? Do that. But yes, I love following really messed up characters, and I love following them whether they end up having something like a redemption arc or they just plow into a downward spiral. I don't really care. I want to read those stories. So yeah, those are really fun tropes for me too. And trope number 10. I definitely love the found family tropes when a character is out questing around and finds all the little oddballs and they get together. Now, I do prefer this trope more in certain types of stories than others, but I feel like if it's done well and doesn't come across as really cheesy, because this is one of those ones that I've seen done really, really bad. And it just like really pulls me out of the story, and I can't care about any of the characters if it's done poorly. But if it's done well, I absolutely love it. I love it. Trope number 11. I love a good fantasy race in, well, this is specifically a fantasy trope, of course, but give me a good fantasy race with their own religion, their own lore, their own mythology, their own languages, whatever. You don't have to create an entire language or whatever, but give me enough that that race feels real. And the older that that fantasy race of yours feels, the more interesting they will be. Trope number 12. I love stories that have secret cults, or like offshoots, different sects and cults of religions, or even if it's a cult that's like following a super just charismatic leader and it doesn't really have anything to do with religion specifically. I don't care. Give me a secret cult with their own messed up agenda that they're trying to push, and show me that cult. If you want to make it even better, show me that cult through the perspective of somebody that's in it. That would be amazing. This, I think, is especially fun in stories that are told from multiple perspectives. I used to be a huge World of Warcraft nerd, and they have a lot of stuff like this in the lore of that game. So yeah, it was always my favorite stuff in World of Warcraft. Trope number 13. Give me a good story about a rebellion or even an entire revolution. I don't even know if that kind of trope needs a reasoning behind it. I love this one because who doesn't like a good rebellion? Who doesn't want revolution at some point? It's in history, some of the most exciting times in real world history have been revolutions. Something about people, all the common people coming together and rising up against the powers that have been holding them down for so long. Like, yes, it's inspiring. We need that in this world right now. So give me those stories, inspire me with those stories, make me bawl my eyes out when I see everyone come together. Trope number 14 on this list would be prophecy. I know a lot of people are going to feel things about this one too. I know some people hate prophecy in stories, some people love it. I personally love it. I don't care if it's a prophecy that comes true the way that it's supposed to, which I feel like really doesn't happen that often. or if it's a prophecy that somehow gets twisted or does come true, but not in a way that people expected. Because I love, again, it's that mysterious kind of thing. It's like, well, where did this prophecy come from? Why did it come down? What's supposed to happen? What's said to happen? How do we actually see these things maybe playing out or not playing out? I think a lot of this is because, again, in the real world, there are so many ancient prophecies that I have read that I mean, if you're into Nostradamus even or things like that, like prophecy is absolutely a thing that I believe in, that I believe happens. I've had dreams myself that have turned out to be pretty damn prophetic. So, for me at least, this trope doesn't feel unreal. It feels very realistic. And the fact that I know a lot of people don't like it because it never turns out the way it's supposed to anyway, that's how real world prophecies are, because a lot of the times prophecy is coming from somebody, potentially hundreds of, if not thousands of years before that thing is supposed to occur. So you're having to unravel this mystery of like the language and the culture and the time period that person had that prophecy, and they were trying to communicate it to future generations, right? And so a lot of the times when you look at something like that, it is going to, you might read it to mean a certain thing, but it is going to play out potentially differently than originally expected for a lot of different reasons. So, yeah, I don't know. I love prophecies. I want to explore those. Again, it's the mystery aspect. It's usually in some way relates to the religion or the spiritual practices of that culture and the time and everything. So it's just really, really fun, exciting stuff. If you aren't into the prophecy thing, it's totally cool. But I'm a big fan. And the last one, trope number 15. Are we on? Day? Okay. Trope number 15, apocalypse. Apocalypse. Give me a good apocalyptic story. Apocalyptic events. It doesn't have to be the literal ending of a world. Usually that's not really the point anyway, right? If you look up the definition of apocalypse, it basically means like a great revealing. So when people think of apocalypse, they're thinking end of the world, zombies, whatever, right? Now, because that great revealing that happens in an apocalyptic scenario is something that is going to shake the foundations of your world, whether that be politically, environmentally, in whatever way, knowledge, expanding, all of these things usually happening to some degree or other at once is really what creates an apocalypse, right? And it's going to change everything forever. It's not an ending, it's a huge shift. And it usually can be very traumatizing because of how intense it is. And so that's why a lot of people, I think, well, that and maybe, Christianity or whatever, that's why I think a lot of people associate apocalypse with something so big and scary. But it doesn't have to be. It can be really exciting and really interesting if done well. So that was my 15, at least the ones I can think of for now, my 15 biggest favorite tropes in fantasy. I realize not a lot of them are necessarily character-based, but a huge part of the reason I love fantasy is not necessarily just for character-based stories. I still want good, well-rounded characters, and I'll talk about that at some point, but I love all of these things in my setting, in my plot, in the history of the world, all of this stuff. It's super fun. If you are writing your own story, I really hope that maybe at the very least some of this could kind of get the juices flowing, help you brainstorm. As I've said before, listening to videos about stuff like this has helped me over the years brainstorm my own stories, get ideas, whatever, right? And so for whatever reason you decided to watch this, I hope it was helpful. I'd love to hear your comments below, any tips, tricks, advice, whatever that you have when it comes to writing these tropes, or yeah, like I said, book recommendations, etc. If you are new here, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. If you are one of my subscribers, thank you so much, you guys. It makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys soon.